Hi guys, I moved my work area because as much as I love Bonnie Blue, I didn't want her to disturb us for our math activity today. It's more of our math review. Before we get started, I thought that we would review those favorite number combinations. You know what I'm talking about. I hope you do. 10 buddies! So we're going to watch a quick video from our friend Jack Hartman, and he is going to review 10 buddies with us. So let's start thinking about that. If you want to sing along, but I'm going to turn the time over to Jack Hartman for us. Here we go.
Fingers, 10 toes, 10 pins you knock down when you bowl. 10 cents makes one dime. What numbers make 10 every time? 0 plus 10 makes 10. 1 plus 9 makes 10. 2 plus 8 makes 10. 3 plus 7 makes 10. 4 plus 6 makes 10. 5 plus 5 makes 10. 10 fingers, 10 toes, 10 pins you knock down when you bowl. 10 cents makes one dime. What numbers make 10 every time? 6 plus 4 makes 10. 7 plus 3 makes 10. 8 plus 2 makes 10. 9 plus 1 makes 10. 10 plus 0 makes 10. These numbers are friends of 10. Did you know crabs have 10 legs? And there are 10 years in a decade. And in football, it takes 10 yards to get a first down. And when a rocket ship blasts off, they count down from 10. Wow, 10 is a cool number. Now you answer on your own. 0 plus makes 10. 1 plus makes 10. 2 plus makes 10. 3 plus makes 10. 4 plus makes 10. 5 plus makes 10. 6 plus makes 10. 7 plus makes 10. 8 plus makes 10. 9 plus makes 10. 10 plus makes 10. These numbers are friends of 10. 10 fingers, 10 toes, 10 pins you knock down when you bowl. 10 cents makes one dime. What numbers make 10 every time? Let's be...
All right. I like that one a lot. I hope you like that one too. But it's a good reminder as to why we use this strategy, this math strategy that we're learning. Now remember, I'll say this every time, this is just a strategy. It's not one that it's not one that you have to use all the time, especially when we add and subtract. But it is one that I want you to think about, especially with those 10 buddies. When we can find the 10 buddies, remember, when you can find a 10 buddy and get to a 10 when you're adding or subtracting, it can make your problem solving a little bit easier. Sorry, my phone's being weird. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to review. And a lot of you today, you get to be the coach today. So my challenge to you today is, if you are still ready to be the coach and you can teach this concept to a brother, a sister, a parent, whoever you can work through this with, that would be fantastic, because it's just more practice for you coaches. And remember, as you're coaching, you don't want to give them the answer. You just want to explain the steps as to why we're going through each of these steps. So we're going to start with an addition problem. I'm going to put one on my board. I'm going to try my best to use this. I really like this thing, so I'm going to try my best to use this appropriately and try to write so you can see. And even if I have to kind of put it sideways so I can write, I'll make sure I show you everything. But we're gonna start with our problem. We're gonna go through the steps. So I want you to think first before I get started. Our 4 steps. Now remember, we're adding. So let's start with this problem. Let's do 19 plus 4. So remember, if we put 19 plus 4 at the top, parents, I know you automatically are going to just tell your kiddos, hey, you can count on, that is definitely a strategy. But what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to teach them to think a little bit more abstractly as to how they can solve these problems a little bit quicker. So one of the things that we ask them to do is we ask them to find the 10 buddy. So if you have a number like 19, I want to know how many more is it going to take me to get to the next 10. So I'm going to put this on a number line for us just to kind of show. So if I have 19, I want to get to the nearest 10. So what am I going to add to the 19 to get to the nearest 10? Coaches, tell your parents what you're going to add. We're going to add 1. Because if we look at this number right here, the 9 in the ones column in 19, we know that 9's buddy is 1. And if I add 1 to 9, that's going to make 10. But I have to take that 1 from somewhere. So where am I going to take that 1 from? Well, I'm going to take it from the second part of my problem, from this 4. So our first step, boys and girls, is remember when we add is we decompose. And we're going to decompose this second part so that we can give this 19 what it needs to get to 20. So so the 4 has to give 19 1. So remember, if the 4 gives 19 1, there's going to be a number left over. 4 minus that 1 is going to be 3. So I'm going to decompose my 4. Decompose means, remember, we're going to take apart. So we're going to break apart that 4 into a 1 and a 3. Now remember our next step. I have to make the 10. So number 1 is decompose. Number 2, make the 10. What 2 numbers do I add together to make the 10? Well, remember, we decided that this 19 is going to need that 1. So these 2 numbers right here, I'm going to circle them like this. I'm going to add them together. So my number sentence is 19 plus 1 equals what, boys and girls? It's going to equal 20. And then I can demonstrate that on my number line as well. If I have 19 and I add 1, I'm going to be at 20. But guess what? I'm not finished because the 1 is done. I've added the 1 and I've added the 19. I'm not going to erase that because we're going to come back to this. But we still have this little guy right here. So remember, once we've used the 1 and we've made the 10, there's still another step before we can completely solve this problem. And that step is adding the 10 plus our leftover. Because remember, the 3 is the leftover number. We have to do something with it. We still have to add it into the problem. So if I have my 10, I've made my 10, I got to 20. And then I add my leftover, so 20 plus 3. That's going to equal 23. And I can show that on my number line too. So I have 20, I've added the 1, now I'm going to add my 3 plus 3, and I land on 23. So even though we've found the answer, we're not quite finished yet because we have to circle back to the original problem. Our original problem is 19 plus 4. So here's how we would say it. I know that 19 plus 1 equals 20. I also know that 20 plus 3 equals 23. So that means 19 plus 4 equals, everybody, 23. Okay? So again, we can count on. A lot of kids will say, I just did it in my head. And that is totally, again, those are all strategies that I do want kids to use. But as we're learning this strategy, I still want them to show me the steps as they go through. I want to see this visual representation on the number line, and I want to see them break it down. This just shows me that they understand how to decompose numbers. This shows me how they can make tens, how they can manipulate those numbers and come to the problem. And this will be important as we get into our next steps. We're definitely not done with this unit. This is not the only strategy we're going to be learning in this unit. This is just the first strategy. So really what we're focusing on is that make 10. I want them to be able to make those tens, add the leftovers, and then come back to the original problem. Okay, so that's one problem example. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to make this one a little bit harder, but again, it's the same concept. Now remember, boys and girls, we talked about it doesn't matter what number you have. If you have the number 67, if we're trying to make the 10, we're always just going to look at this number in the ones column, because this number is the one that we're going to have to add to get our number to the nearest 10. So remember, if you have a number like 67, what would I add to that so I get to 70? Remember, 7's buddy is always going to be 3. So whatever number I have here, I'll have to decompose it to get that 3 to add to the 67. So parents, if this is totally confusing you, I apologize. Boys and girls, we've gone over this, so you should know. And if not, that's okay. This is a review, so don't get frustrated. So let's do another one. I'm going to do one more example, and then we'll flip and we'll do subtraction. So let's do 37 plus 9. And we're going to go through the steps. I am going to add my number line. Now, because we're adding, we're going to start on this side of the number line, and I'm going to put 37 down because that's our beginning part. Now, remember, the first step is we have to decompose. So we need to figure out, okay, this 37 needs to get to the nearest 10. What am I going to add to 37 to get to the nearest 10? So instead of looking at the 3, I'm going to look at the 7, and 7's going to say, well, my buddy's 3. I'm going to need 3 to get to the nearest 10. So again, where does that 3 come from? That 3 is going to come from the 9. So if I take 3, my number line's a little up high, I'm going to do this a little off to the side. If I take 3 from that 9, so I'm decomposing my 9 now, I'm breaking it apart. So I'm breaking it into a 3, and then I have a number over here. So if I have 9, and I take away that 3, and then remember there's going to be 6 left over. But we don't need the 6 yet, we need to make the 10. So we first need the 3. So my first number sentence again, after we decompose, we make the 10. 37 plus 3 equals 40. Because if I have 37, again we add on 37, 38, 39, 40. You can use that counting on strategy as well. So we get to our 10, which is 40. And I'm going to show that on my number line. So I have 37, and I just added 3, and that put me at 40 on my number line. Now remember, am I finished? Remember, I am not, because I've used the 3, but I have this guy over here. I've got the 6. Remember, the 6 is like, you gotta use me. I'm left over. So after we've made the 10, after we've added 37 plus 3 and made 40, we're going to use that 10, and we are going to add that to our leftover number. So 40 plus 6, which is our leftover, equals 46. Okay? Now, even though we have our answer now, I know that 37 plus 3 equals 40. I also know that 40 plus 6 equals 46. So that means, back to the original problem, 37 plus 9 equals 46. Okay? So, coaches, If you want to take and find a student, either your parents or someone, even a stuffed animal. Coaches, if you want to take a stuffed animal from your room and work through some of the problems, you can work through the two that we've gone through together, or I'm going to give 2 addition and 2 subtraction at the end of this. Then coaches, you can take these problems and work through and talk out how you would solve these with your students. Okay, so I want you to give that a shot. So now we're going to switch gears. So we're going to switch and we're going to talk about subtraction. Now remember, subtraction, same thing still applies. We still have to make the 10. And so the steps change just a little bit, but we'll start with, what was the first one? I think it was 18. No, it was 19. 19 plus 4. So we're going to start with, we'll do a different one. So let's start with 15 take away 7. Okay. Now again, I'm going to put my number line up because I like to use my number line. Now because we're subtracting, we're going to go to the other side of the number line because we're going down the number line, not up. When we subtract, we go down. When we add, we go up. And so we're going to start with 15. Now remember the number 15. Remember the value of these digits. So the 1 in 15 is worth 10. The value of the 5 in 15 is worth 5 ones. So remember what we talked about. 15, the 10 is like, I need a break. What does it have to get rid of? If there's 1 10 and 5 ones, what is this 10 going to have to say goodbye to so that it is by itself? And we talked about this a lot last week. We said, well, if it gets rid of it has to get rid of the number in the ones column. So if I have 15, in order to get that 10 by itself, I have to take away the 5. And that gives the 10 some space. Okay? So 15 take away 5 equals 10. And I'm going to show that on my number line. I have to get rid of that 5. So instead of adding this time, we're subtracting. And that's going to put me at 10. This is the part where we get a little tripped up, especially with subtraction. Because the rule is, whatever you take away from this side, you have to take away from this number here, from the second part. So if I subtracted the 5 from 15, I have to subtract it from the 7. Okay? So if I have 7 and I take away that 5, what will I have left over? Well, sometimes I have to tell the kids, and if you have to do this, use your fingers, because sometimes we get a little confused. Our brain, we're thinking about making 10s and trying to figure out the problem, but use your fingers. I don't mind if you do this. So remember, if you have 7 and you take away 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your leftover number is going to be the number 2. I know that's really small, so hopefully you can see that okay. I know it's small. So, we've made the 10. We have 15 take away 5 equals 10. Now remember our next step. We've used the 5, so we don't have to use that anymore, but remember we have this leftover guy. The leftover number is 2. So like when we subtract, we do the same thing. We take the 10, we subtract the leftover, and we're going to get 8. Because I know that 2's buddy for 10 is 8, so obviously it has to be 8, right? So I'm going to go 2 more on my number line, and I'm sorry, these numbers, I decompose as 7. It's getting into my number line. My fault. So here's my, I'm going to do this. So then here's my minus 2. So, again, so 15 minus 2, I'm sorry, so the 10 minus 2 gets us to the 8, and we're finished, right? But not quite, because remember, I know that 15 take away 5 equals 10. I also know that 10 take away 2 equals 8. So we have to circle back to the original problem, which is 15 take away 7 equals 8. Okay? So I think the part that trips us up the most when we do subtraction, boys and girls, is when we get to this part where we've taken away the 10, and just remembering that whatever you subtract from this number, so whether this is a 5, a 7, a 9, whatever, you still need to subtract it from this part here, because this part is still a part of the problem. So you need to subtract it and then get you're breaking it apart. If you're subtracting it from the 7, you're going to decompose it and find the other number that will if you have the -5, then you'll need to find the other number. And I keep saying that wrong, so I apologize. All right, so let's do one more, and I know this video is getting long. Hopefully you guys are staying with me. You're like, oh my gosh, it's like we're in class. Sorry about that. This math it can be a little tricky. So let's do one more problem. We're going to do a higher number, and then I'm going to give you some problems to work on. I'm going to give you 2 subtraction and 2 addition problems to work on at home. And then, again, take a picture of it. Send me how you solved it. Be a coach. Find a student. Coach your student. Have some fun with it. Okay? So the next one, let's do 36. We're going to do 36 take away 9. I'm going to put my number line down a little bit lower so I have some room. Okay, now remember, because we're subtracting, we're going to go to the other end. We're going to take this higher number, 36, and I'm going to put it at the other end of my number line. Okay, so again, remember our story. So 36 says, I need to be by myself. So 30 says, because we know that 36 is 3 tens, which is 30, and 6 ones. So the 30 has to say to the 6 ones, you're out of here, right? You've got to go away. So we have to subtract. We have to take away those 6 ones. And if I take away those 6 ones, then I'll end up at 30. Okay? And I'm going to show that on my number line. So I'm going to go 36, take away 6, and now I'm back at 30. So I've got my tens by themselves. But I'm not finished yet, because remember, like I've said before, if you take away the 6 ones from the 36, you have to take away those 6 ones from the 9. So if I take away those 6 ones from the 9, I'm going to be left with 3 ones, okay? Because 9 take away 6 is 3. So 3 is going to be our leftover number here. And I'm just going to circle him so I remember he's the one that I'm going to have to use next. Because our next step is when we take the tens and we subtract it from the leftover. So if I have 30 and I take away 3, boys and girls, what's 3's buddy for 10? If you can think about that right off the top of your head, so you don't have to sit there and think, oh, this is hard, it's still 30, take away 3. Just look at that 3 and go, oh, I know that 3's buddy for 10 has to be 7. And if we're going backwards, we're going to be in the 20s. We have to. So the answer has to be 27. Or we can count backwards. 30, 29, 28, 27. And there's my -3 right here. So I know that 36 take away 6 equals 30. I also know that 30 minus 3 equals 27. So we circle back to the beginning. So that means 36 take away 9 equals 27. Okay? If you need to go back and rewatch, again, this is a long lesson. If you need to go back and rewatch just to kind of get the feel for this again, I want to review this because I don't know how long we're going to be online for. I know next week is spring break. I'm not going to expect you to do a lot of work because that's your break time, but hopefully we'll be able to see each other in the classroom after spring break, but I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen. So I do want to, as I've been thinking about it this week, I would like us to continue to work on some of the math concepts that that we need to learn about in class because they are important. So like I said in the video before, today I would even say today and tomorrow, if you guys would like to sit and work on some of these math problems together, I did the main idea and the spelling word, story, or sentences. That's definitely something you could do too. Or, I mean, if you want to get on and do some of the online things, I will leave that up to you guys. Just please send me a quick email, check in with me, and let me know, hey, Mrs. Colson, we're working, and I'll be, yep, that's fantastic. You guys are good to go. So let me give you a couple problems. Let's do 2 addition problems and 2 subtraction problems, and I want you to work through them. I want you to work through them just like how I did it. So I want to see everything. I want to see the number line. I want to see you making the 10, adding the leftovers, and then that means the final number. So I do want to see the whole problem worked through, just like I showed you on the board, just like what we've been doing in class. So I want to see that as well. So let's see, we did 36 take away 9. Let's do, for subtraction, 23 take away 7. And then let's do 42 take away 5. Okay, and then for addition, hold on, I want to look at my, all right, for addition, let's review, and let's do 35, no, not 35, let's do 37 plus 6, and then let's do, oh, I don't know, let's do 28 plus 8. Okay. So give those a shot. Sorry, those are really bad. Give those a shot. 2 addition, 2 subtraction. Remember our steps. Decompose, make a 10, add the leftover or subtract the leftover, and that means, okay? And then just remember on your subtraction, whatever you subtract whatever you subtract from here to get the 10, so if you're subtracting the 3 from the 23 to get 20, you have to subtract it from this number, okay? So don't forget that. And then just let me know how you're doing. Thanks, you guys, for being patient with me. This is like a lesson we'd have in class. Oh my goodness, we'd be going on to specials right now. Enjoy your day. Have a lot of fun, and I hope to, and I'll send another message tomorrow and make it an easier day for you tomorrow. And hopefully this is not hard either. Just let me know. All right, so we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a fantastic day. Bye, guys.